I would like to start this video with a little clip from the 2023 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which has nothing to do with who I like or dislike in F1, by the way.
Can he get it done? Norris trying to stay there. They make contact. That seemed to be happening at such slow speed. Perez seemed to have the place. Norris seemed to turn in.
Right now you're probably thinking one of two things. It's either, wow, what a clean overtake from the British boy Lando Norris, or it's, wow, those two Lenovo ads over there look really fake. And today I want to talk about thought number 2. They're so-called CGI ads, which is any ad that isn't there in real life but is added digitally when it airs, and they're very common in sports. For example, in football, the ads around the field are different from wherever in the world you're watching. They're also just CGI. So why do they look so real in football, but in F1 they look like I added them there myself? And there's a pretty good reason for why that is. 3 reasons to be exact, and the first one being the tracking. Tracking is the base of making a CGI ad look real. It's the process of going from PNG accidentally added on the screen to PNG actually integrated in whatever's going on. The way they do this in football is by using 3D models, kinda like this one that took me a lot of hours to make in Blender. But in those 3D models, they also include all of the cameras that will be used in the live stream. The real cameras are then placed on these special mounts that give every zoom, rotation and position a value. Also, I only really saw the mounts being referred to as like, ooh, they're special, which doesn't really tell me anything, but this might be how they look. With this, the computer knows that if these are the specific values our favorite special mount is picking up, then this is how much of the ad that should be showing, and then they do that for every frame. The way they make players stay in front of the ads isn't really as relevant. They just pick which colors should either be in front of or behind the ad, the same way with the green screen. This all looks very nice and fancy when it's finished, but it has some downsides. It takes a lot of time to set everything up, more than it did explaining. There's a bunch of hardware required and it's all a very expensive process, which makes it perfect for a sport where you play every Sunday in a stadium, but in F1 every Sunday means racing in a new part of the planet on tracks that are a lot bigger than a stadium and require a lot more special mounts. Instead, they use something called planar tracking, where the computer tracks different points on a surface to allow you to kind of attach an object right to it. Most likely what you would use if you wanted to replace a screen on a phone with something more of your liking. This type of tracking is partly just worse, but it also doesn't give you a 3D model to work with, which means you can't fully replicate the shape of the surface you're tracking. So if there's a slightly bent fence in F1, they can either leave the ad be completely flat or change the shape so it kinda looks bent but isn't, and none of them look very nice. The same issue occurs with the angled parts at the top, you know, the ones so F1 drivers don't escape. They sometimes ignore those as well, which is unique. The second reason is pretty closely tied to the first, but I still gave it a separate one so that it would add up to a triangle, and that is speed. General rule of thumb, tracking as a whole becomes a lot harder and a lot more inconsistent when things go very fast, and F1 cars, that's kind of their thing. So when the cars are so quick, the cameras following them have to make really drastic movements, and if a car ever flies past the camera and a CGI ad is visible, you pause at one frame and move forward a couple, and there is a big possibility that the ad is not in the same place as it once was. It's pretty common actually. In this clip from the same highlight video, you can see the Heineken ad very clearly being over the white line, but go forward a few frames and surprise, surprise, it's not there anymore. The third reason isn't as much of a technical thing, but more what they're meant to resemble. Most of the time you see CGI ads, they're meant to resemble LED screens, which is really smart. LED screens don't really care about shadows. They always look like floating PNGs even when they're not, and if everything goes according to plan, they also don't move. But if you put them on a fence in F1, they're meant to resemble these very toned down rubber ads that shake as cars go by, which doesn't work very well with CGI. So you're left with something that looks like a very flat Samsung TV but is trying to resemble something completely different. The ones on asphalt are a bit better because you can maybe play it off as paint, but still, if you want a CGI ad to look real, the most effective way would be to call it an LED screen, and that's not really something F1 can do because they're not very common there. I do think this is the biggest reason why they aren't very believable, but that's about it. That's the holy trinity of why CGI ads in F1 look so bad. Before I end this, I also want to say that even though I've called these ads bad many a times, I don't want it to seem like the people working with them are any less skilled than in other sports, because that's just not the case. I mean, there's a reason I settled for a triangle and not a square, because it's not on them. And also, there's no reason to actually care that much about these ads, because, I mean, the racing is still the important part. This was just me trying to cope with not watching F1 for 3 months. Thank you for watching, and goodbye from person talking during the credits.
Watching it